Hey guys, Omni here. Last night, I finally went out and saw The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, the latest entry in the main line of the Conjuring universe films. Though this time around, not directed by James Wan, this time directed by The Curse of La Llorona's Michael Chavez. Now, I know a lot of people going into this was a little shaky on him helming this film and not James Wan because of the reception to Curse of La Llorona. But I think there was a lot of forces at work that allow a benefit of the doubt to be given to Michael Chavez in this case, because there's a lot of lack of studio confidence in that film. Of course, it was written by a whole different group of people. It was never actually intended to be part of the Conjuring universe. That was just a marketing ploy from the studio to try to encourage people to go see it. It was like a last minute decision, from what I recall, to get people to go see that film. Now, I haven't seen it for myself, so I don't know if it's actually as bad as a lot of people say, but I think given the nature of the beast behind the scenes is enough to give Michael Chavez the benefit of the doubt coming in here and helming one of these. Of course, the story this time around is still overseen by James Wan and David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick. McGoldrick actually writing the screenplay itself, but the story still from the mind conventions of James Wan as we move forward in this story. So that being said, coming out of the film, if I didn't know that it was directed by somebody else and I watched these films back to back, I'm not sure that I would actually notice a difference. It flows. The pacing in this movie is still very strong. I think it was, of course, all of the performances were really, I don't know if this is a credit to the director or a credit to, of course, some of these great actors that they have. Everybody did a great job in this film. And I thought everything really came together in a nice, lovely, cohesive way. Of course, returning is Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga as Ed and Lorraine Warren. And it still surprises me at the end of each one of these films that I do go and see in theaters, because they always do this thing at the end where they play the real life footage. They show photographs from the times with the real people involved, the real Warrens. And it's always surprising to me when I hear people talking amongst themselves at the end of these movies and how many people still have no idea that these movies are actually based on real people. It's not one of those cases like the Paranormal Activity or whatever, where it says it's based on a real story and it's not. It's just part of the fiction. These are actually filmed and based on and centered around real world events. Whether or not you believe in the supernatural, like the Amityville Horror is one of their cases. Of course, Annabelle is a doll you can actually go and visit. Actually looking into that, I think they actually shut down the museum that houses the Warrens' collection of oddities due to some zoning laws or whatever. So can't visit that yet. Apparently the son or grandson or someone involved in the Warren family is trying to figure out how to change locations and reopen that. But it's just surprising how many people that, because there's actually going into this, I think it was in the first teaser trailer thing they put out where it was a lot of behind the scenes stuff for this film. They actually show the real Arnie Johnson like giving an interview talking about his experience through this whole thing. Like, so it's pretty interesting, especially since him and Debbie are both still alive, as far as I recall. At least before the film actually came out, they were still alive. Of course, Arnie Johnson in the film is played by Rory O'Connor, and I'm not sure. I believe I heard somebody say this was his first like big film role, and he's honestly, I think, a breakout in this. If that is the case, I think he does a phenomenal job at endearing you to this character, at showing these layers, this charm, this charisma as well. I think he did a fantastic job in this role, and he definitely steps up to the plate with these big league legends like Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga and goes toe-to-toe. Of course, we have Sarah Catherine Hook playing Debbie Gatzel, who is the girl in the whole story, part of the Gatzel family, where this possession initiates with her younger brother, David, who is played by Julian Hilliard, which you might recognize. Of course, I've seen a lot of people talk about this in the trailer. He's Billy in WandaVision. Billy, right? Wiccan? He's Wiccan in WandaVision. And of course, we have John Noble in here, which you would know from as Denethor from Lord of the Rings. He was the voice of Malus. If you watch DC's Legends of Tomorrow, he was Butcher's father. If you are a fan of The Boys, iconic actor popping up in here. But there's a stellar cast in this, just all around. I don't feel like there's a weak link in this cast whatsoever. And like I've said this before when talking about the Conjuring films, is that while they are I consider them like the Marvel movies of the horror genre. They do kind of have a formula. They do have a kind of consistency and feeling to them that you can that just kind of works. Like it hits on every level. So like going into this, I expected it to still kind of tread along those lines. Of course, you have the oddity in there that, of course, isn't handled directly by the core masterminds of this thing, like the first Annabelle movie, or of course, The Curse of La Llorona, which actually wasn't intended to be in here, or even The Nun, that I feel like are the weakest links in this whole franchise. But I feel like they do kind of stick to this formula and they don't really break away from it too much in this. What I do like that they do in this, the one switch up that they do is this isn't just a straightforward possession. This is not just a straightforward haunted house movie. They do break away from that convention, and I won't go into what's going on here. They kind of allude to it in the trailer, but I'll leave that to you guys to look up and figure out as you go along. A lot of what really happened, they actually do accurately transcribe into this film and bring it to life, while also building their own narrative around it to expand and explain it and tie it into kind of their universe's workings. So there's this fictional element of it too, as with all the other films. There is a work of fiction that comes into it where they're adapting these to the screen to kind of build it out. And that's really where a lot of the plot kind of takes place. It's kind of this like whodunit story that comes about trying to figure out what the cause of all of this is, who targeted the Johnsons, why did Arnie Johnson become possessed and all that stuff. And you're trying to figure that out because they're trying to prove in a court of law that the devil exists and that Arnie didn't do this of his own volition. So it's really interesting to see how that plays out because it's part courtroom drama, part haunted house movie, part possession movie, part just and I kind of coming out of the film described it as such. I always see these films because of the Warrens and of course Lorraine's abilities. These kind of being like horror superhero movies in kind of a way. There's like a superhero supernatural element to it that really fits really well, which is one other reason why I think the Marvel comparison goes to like, because this isn't like a Midsummer, like this artistic like leap of faith kind of thing where they're just doing something off the wall, but this also isn't just like that your film you're going into that's just going to be just slaughterfest 10,000 gore fest whatever. Like they go into these movies to create a character driven narrative. It is about the people, it is about the humans involved, the people, the human element that experiences these above natural elements and occurrences, and how people are affected by that, how people live with it, how people deal with it, and how people confront the unknown. And it's very down to earth in that way. While the scares themselves never go leaps and bounds, and I do credit for this, I think they do a lot better in this with honing in on the jump scares. I think the main Conjuring films, like 1, 2, and 3, do a really good job at like building up and earning their jump scares when they do happen. But there is a lot of atmosphere, there's a lot of tension that is built, there's a lot of beautiful set pieces that come about in this, a lot of great moments and sequences as well that are really thrilling. I wouldn't say scary, especially in this one. They were touting this was being the scariest one, the darkest one ever. While it might be, I would say it's definitely a little bit darker than the previous two, though I would argue the first one's probably pretty dark. But I think this one, you could make an argument for this one definitely being darker than the first one. But as far as being the scariest, I don't think so, but I did find it very thrilling. I felt like this was more of a thriller, whodunit crime drama kind of thing, because it's really interesting seeing, Ed and Lorraine try to investigate this, because we see a lot more of the investigation and a lot of different set pieces, a lot of different locations, because this spans across a region rather than just a singular location, and it becomes a little bit bigger than just the Johnson murder. So it's pretty interesting. And I do encourage people that come out of this film to actually look into the Warrens and actually look into this actual case. The testimonies from the families that were involved. There's been a lot of drama in there that make its own really fun little movie. This back and forth within the Gatzel family as well, kind of against Arnie Johnson and all this stuff. So it's a really interesting story. I had heard about it before this movie was made. There's been a couple of different adaptations of it up to this point. just like with the Amityville Horror, which is another Ed and Lorraine Warren case. We've seen some adaptations on this and spins on it, of course, but I feel like this was a fun ride. They definitely adapted it and shifted it to fit into the narrative of the Conjuring universe a little bit, while still having the blessing of most of those that were actually involved in the incident back when it happened in the 80s. It was a fun ride. I do recommend it. I think as a film itself, I'd give this a solid B+. I think that's where I would set in with it. Again, I don't think it's super scary. I just find these films very interesting, especially with Ed and Lorraine Warren's stories and the investigation element, this occult element to it. I just find that stuff kind of fascinating, and I like that it doesn't ever really lose its heart in just trying to scare everybody. You know, it still stays about the people, because I think the best horror films occur when you care about the people going through these horrific events. Because if you don't care about them, they're just meat puppets. And it's like, I personally, while that can be enjoyable for some, and for me, if I'm in a certain mood, that can be enjoyable, but I like to care about what's happening to the people on the screen so that I get invested into what happens to them if the unfortunate does happen. It's just part of the drama, part of the intrigue that gets you sucked into these films. I love it when it's just about the characters, and that's what this universe does well, is makes a series of likable characters that makes you just want everything to turn out okay in the end, and it doesn't always. But guys, that's my thoughts on this film. I want to know yours. If you've seen the movie, sound off the comments. Let me know your thoughts down below. We'll carry on the conversation after the video. Huge shout out to our channel legends, Mandy Sherritt, Jason Coleman, and Ryan Karen. Thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you everybody who's been joined over the Patreon or on the YouTube memberships here. Remember, we got a Discord open for everybody. If you want to join that, the link is in the description, as well as the links to all my other socials. I do encourage that you follow me, then support me there as well. But otherwise, thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care, everybody.